It was around 12:30 a.m. I was driving from New York to North Carolina. The next day could change my life. I had interviews scheduled with two major companies, and everything seemed to be riding on them. After more than 8 hours on the road, my eyes felt heavy with exhaustion. The countless cups of coffee I'd been drinking had stopped helping. The highway was nearly empty, and darkness stretched endlessly in every direction. Then, suddenly, something appeared in the beam of my headlights. And in an instant, all my fatigue vanished. A man was standing on the side of the highway, wearing a black suit, completely motionless. As my car passed him, he slowly turned his head and looked directly at me. At the time, I had no idea
that this was only the beginning of the most terrifying night of my life.
I glanced into my rearview mirror, but within a few seconds, the man had disappeared into the darkness. To calm myself down, I came up with several explanations. Maybe his car had broken down. Maybe he had gotten into an argument with someone. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. But deep down, something didn't feel right. About 10 minutes later, just as I had finally started to relax, my headlights illuminated another figure standing by the side of the road. I froze. It was the same man, the same black suit, the same expressionless face, and this time he was staring directly at me. A chill ran through my body. Without thinking, I slammed on the brakes. My car slowly rolled to a stop on the side of the highway. For a moment, I thought maybe the man needed help. Maybe I should check on him. But just as I was about to stop completely, I glanced into the rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty. I quickly turned around and looked back. The man was gone. Completely gone. There were no trees nearby, no buildings, no place where he could have hidden in just a few seconds. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. A wave of chills ran through my entire body. Without wasting another second, I slammed my foot on the accelerator and sped away. But the real terror was still ahead. I still had about an hour and a half left to drive, and by then, exhaustion had become my greatest enemy.
A little while later, I spotted a small gas station up ahead. I figured another cup of coffee might help keep me awake for the rest of the drive. A few minutes later, coffee in hand, I walked back toward my car. That's when I noticed something near a distant light pole, and my heart nearly stopped. It was him, the same man, the same black suit, the same pale, emotionless face, the same empty stare. This time the area was brightly lit. I could see him clearly. He wasn't looking at the gas station. He wasn't looking at the road. He was staring directly at my car, as if he had been waiting for me. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Without wasting a second, I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. Then I drove away as fast as I could. But no matter how far I went, it felt like he was always getting there first.
By this point, I was exhausted. The coffee wasn't helping anymore, and my eyes kept drifting shut. I knew that if I didn't get some rest soon, I might end up causing a serious accident. So I took the next exit and pulled into a deserted parking lot. There was nobody around, just darkness, cold wind, and my car. I reclined in my seat and tried to get some sleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same image. The man in the black suit, standing motionless, watching, waiting. Eventually, I must have drifted off. Then suddenly, I woke up, my heart pounding. For a moment, I didn't know why. I quickly looked out the windows. Nothing. The parking lot was empty. No people, no cars, no movement. Just silence. Trying to calm myself, I slowly lifted my eyes toward the rearview mirror, and what I saw made me scream. The man wasn't outside anymore. He was sitting in the back seat of my car. The moment my eyes met the rearview mirror, my blood turned to ice. Someone was sitting in the back seat. I only saw it for a split second, but it was enough. A man, perfectly still, staring at me from the darkness. I was certain it was the same man in the black suit. I screamed, threw open the car door, and practically fell out onto the pavement. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. For several seconds, I just stood there shaking in the cold night air. Then, gathering every bit of courage I had left, I slowly looked back inside the car. The back seat was empty. No one was there. Nothing. I stood frozen, trying to make sense of what I had seen. Had someone really been sitting there? Or were my exhausted eyes finally playing tricks on me? I wanted to believe it was just fatigue. I wanted to believe none of it was real. But the next day, I was about to discover something that would make the fear far worse. And when I learned the truth,
somehow pulled myself together and took a deep breath. By now, I was convinced that sleep deprivation and the stress of my upcoming interviews were messing with my mind. I finished the rest of my coffee in one gulp and drove straight to my hotel without stopping again. Around 2 a.m., I finally arrived. I barely had enough energy to check in. The moment I reached my room, I collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep within seconds. The next morning, the sound of my alarm jolted me awake. Today was the day of my first interview. I quickly got dressed, grabbed my resume, and headed to the company's office building. Everything felt normal again. The events of the previous night already seemed distant, like a strange nightmare. Then the interview room door opened. The interviewer stepped outside, and the ground seemed to disappear beneath my feet. My blood ran cold. He looked exactly like the man from the highway. The same black suit, the same sharp features, the same unsettling expression. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. The man smiled politely and extended his hand. "Good morning."
"You must be Daniel." His voice sounded normal, friendly even. But all I could think was, how was that possible? Because I was absolutely certain I had seen that face standing alone on a deserted highway at midnight. The interviewer standing in front of me looked exactly like the man I had been seeing all night. The same black suit, the same short brown hair, the same calm, expressionless face. For a few seconds, I just stared at him. Maybe he noticed how nervous I was, because a strange, questioning look appeared on his face. Somehow, I forced a smile and followed him into the interview room. But my mind wasn't there. Every question reminded me of the events from the night before. The lonely highway, the gas station, the figure in my back seat. My voice shook. My answers became confused and disorganized. I could tell the interview was slipping away from me. Every minute that passed made it worse. By the time it was over, I already knew I had failed. The opportunity I had driven hundreds of miles for was gone. But the real answer to what had happened that night was still waiting for me. And before the day was over,
as soon as the first interview ended, I walked out of the building. Deep down, I already knew it had gone badly. I had been distracted, nervous, and completely unable to focus. But I still had one more chance. An hour later, my second interview began. This time the interviewer was a woman. Before going in, I took a deep breath and forced myself to forget everything that had happened the night before. The highway, the gas station, the man in the black suit, the figure in the back seat. I pushed it all out of my mind. And somehow, it worked. interview went smoothly. I answered every question confidently. For the first time that day, I felt like myself again. A few weeks later, I received the call. I got the job. It should have been a happy ending, but the mystery of the man in the black suit never left me. Months later, I finally told my therapist the entire story. She listened carefully and then said, "It's possible your mind created those images because of stress, fear, exhaustion, and sleep deprivation." Honestly, it made sense. I had been driving for hours. I was exhausted. My future felt uncertain. Maybe my brain had simply reached its limit. Maybe none of it had been real. But was that really the answer? Because what happened next would make me question everything. And this time, the danger wasn't in my imagination. It was real.
Sometime later, another incident shook me to my core. That night, I was driving home through a remote area of Pennsylvania. It was well past midnight, and the road was nearly empty. Then, my car flashed a warning message: low fuel. I searched for the nearest gas station and pulled in. The place was almost deserted. Only one other vehicle was there, an old pickup truck. A man stood beside it. From the moment I arrived, he seemed to be watching me. I tried not to pay attention. I bought a coffee, got back into my car, and continued my drive. A few minutes later, I noticed something strange. The same pickup truck was parked on the side of the road ahead. Its engine was off, its lights were off, and the driver appeared to be standing beside it, waiting, watching, as if he knew I would pass by. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe his truck had broken down. But after everything had experienced before, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. And as I drove past him, it felt less like he was waiting for help and more like he was waiting for me.
Left the pickup truck behind and continued down the highway. To calm myself down, I told myself the driver had probably just stopped to take a break. There was nothing strange about that. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. A few minutes later, my car suddenly chimed. Ding! A warning message flashed across the dashboard. Low tire pressure. My stomach tightened. I slowed down and immediately heard a strange wobbling sound. Thump, thump, thump. My heart sank. One of my rear tires was completely flat. I carefully pulled over to the side of the road and grabbed my phone to call for help. That's when I heard it. The distant sound of an engine. Low, steady, getting closer. I looked up. Far behind me, in the darkness, a vehicle was parked on the side of the road. Its headlights were off. Its engine was running. And even from that distance, its silhouette looked unmistakable. It was a pickup truck. The same pickup truck. The one from the gas station. The one that had been waiting on the roadside. I stared at it, frozen. The truck didn't move. It just sat there in the darkness, watching, waiting. And for the first time that night, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if my flat tire wasn't an accident? What if someone had wanted me to stop? To be continued. The moment I realized the vehicle behind me might be the same pickup truck, a wave of fear rushed through my body. Something wasn't right. I knew it. Without wasting a second, I opened my trunk and grabbed a powerful flashlight from my toolbox. With shaking hands, I aimed the beam down the road. The light reflected off the truck's windshield, and my worst fear was confirmed. It was the same pickup truck. The same one from the gas station. The same one that had been sitting on the roadside. Now I was certain. This wasn't a coincidence. Something was very wrong.
Instead of staying beside my car, I ran toward the tree line and hid behind a large tree. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I quickly gave the dispatcher my location and explained what was happening. Then, through the darkness, I heard a sound that made my stomach drop. The pickup truck's engine started again. A deep rumble echoed through the night. A second later, its headlights flicked on. For a moment, the truck sat completely still.
Then it began to move, slowly, deliberately, rolling straight toward my car. From behind the tree, I watched in silence. The truck wasn't driving down the highway. It wasn't trying to leave. I was hiding behind a tree, trying to stay on the phone with the police. Then, the pickup truck pulled up right next to my car. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Then, the truck's door opened. The same man stepped out. My heart started pounding. Suddenly, he called out, "Hey, do you need any help?" His voice sounded completely normal, friendly even. But I didn't trust his intentions for a second. I didn't answer. At that exact moment, my phone signal started getting weaker. The call crackled. Then it dropped completely. Now I was alone, hidden in the dark woods, and the man was walking around my car. I watched him circle the vehicle, looking through the windows as if searching for someone. Then he stopped. A few seconds later, I heard it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound of footsteps coming in my direction. My heart nearly stopped. I pressed myself against the tree and held my breath. The footsteps kept getting closer, slow, deliberate, unhurried. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't checking on a stranded driver. He was looking for me. The sound of his footsteps was getting closer every second. I stood frozen behind the tree, barely breathing. If he found me, I had no idea what would happen next. Then, suddenly, I heard another engine in the distance. A pair of headlights appeared and illuminated the highway. The man from the pickup truck immediately stopped walking and turned toward the road. A second vehicle slowly pulled up beside him. The two drivers appeared to exchange a few words, and that's when I realized this was my chance. Without thinking, I burst out of the woods and sprinted toward the highway. As soon as I reached the road, I shouted at the top of my lungs, "Help! I don't know this guy!" The driver of the second vehicle immediately stepped out. He looked at me, then at the man beside the pickup truck, then back at me again. The fear on my face must have told him everything. His expression changed instantly. The pickup truck driver suddenly looked nervous. For the first time all night, he didn't seem confident anymore. He seemed worried. And in that moment, the entire situation shifted. I was no longer alone. There was now a witness. Someone else had seen what was happening. And suddenly, the game had changed. The moment I told him what had happened, the other driver realized something was seriously wrong. He quickly walked over to me and asked what was going on. My voice was shaking as I explained that I suspected the man had somehow punctured my tire and had been following me ever since. As soon as the pickup truck driver heard that, his behavior changed. He suddenly looked nervous. He kept insisting that he was only trying to help, again and again. But the confidence he had shown earlier was gone. His words sounded forced, almost desperate. The other driver didn't seem convinced. Neither was I. Then, a few moments later, we saw flashing lights in the distance. Red and blue, getting closer. Police! The instant the pickup truck driver noticed them, he reacted. Without another word, he hurried back to his truck, started the engine, and sped away into the night. The officers arrived just moments later. I gave them a statement and explained everything that had happened.
By the end of the night, I finally made it home safely. But even
now, years later, I still think about that highway, that flat tire, that man. And one question still haunts me. If that second driver hadn't stopped when he did, would I even be here to tell this story? If you enjoyed this terrifying journey, subscribe to Mr. Nightmare 2.0 and become part of our growing horror community. Sweet dreams, if you can sleep.